Hey there, it's me. So this is another part in the my story. I'm laying down in bed, so I thought I would go ahead and do this real quick before I went to sleep, because I know I'm not going to be here much longer. Every every day gets a little worse, and yeah. Anyways, so let's see here. Last time I left off with me in the car on the way back home. So get back to my grandmother's, and my dad starts to explain to me how he wants me to stay there for a few weeks or for a little while. He puts it for a little while to make sure that I'm mentally stable and everything's okay before I go back home and all that stuff. And honestly, it was a whole bunch of BS, but I had no choice in the matter, so I went and I moved in with my grandmother this time. And so I go and I get some clothes and I go to my grandmother's and I start sleeping in the garage. And in 2 days I have to go back to school to take the finals. So I have 2 days of being back home before I get to see her, and I think to myself, should I call her? Should I text her now that I'm back? And I was like, no. I'll wait until I go back to school and see her, cuz I want this, cuz I know it's going to freak her out, and I want it to hit her that much harder. I want her to I want to see the look on her face when she sees me. I don't want to just hear it. So I call Brandon, my friend, and I tell him I'm back, and he was like, "Oh my God, where have you been? What's going on?" I call Charles and I call my other buddies, and they're like, "Dude, you've been gone for a week. What the hell? Where have you been? What's been going on? How you're still alive? There's been rumors going around saying that you were dead. There's rumors going around saying that you disappeared, or you ran away from home. Like, no one knew. No one said a word. No one had any idea. So there were so many rumors going around. It was crazy. The truth is, I was in an institution. But so I was like, yeah, I remember when I called Brandon and Charles and them. I was like, don't tell anybody I'm back yet. I don't want to get back around to Miranda. Don't tell anybody. So they didn't. I was like, I'll tell you more Monday. I've got to go. And, well, 2 days go by, and then, so heading to school, get to school, and standing up at the front of the cafeteria, and there's a 3-layer cafeteria. You've got your top layer you walk down into, seniors and stuff, second layer, and then third layer. So start walking down, and I look over to the left to where my group sits, and I see Miranda, and I get down to the second layer, and one of her friends pokes her in the shoulder and points and says, "Look, there's Justy," and she looks over at me, and she puts her hands over her mouth like this, and I look over at her, and then I look back. I just glance at her, and I glance back straight, and I walk down to my table with my friends, and I sit down, and on the inside, and then as soon as I sit down, I look over, and I see her going like this, and she takes off running, and she runs up the stairs. She runs up all the stairs and disappears, and then, my friends were like, "Hey, Amy, so tell me what happened and everything," and I told them, I told them all of it, and I told them what happened with the mental institution, and I told them how everything went down, and I told them how all this crazy hecticness happened and everything, and they were all like, "Oh my God, dude, that was craziness," and I was like, "Yeah, that was pretty crazy, not gonna lie," and and then went to my exams, and I was just so happy to to be there, So the exams were over. And the end of the day comes by, and I was like, you know what? I was like, I don't want to go home. So I walked from the school to, my dad's house and got my bike, because I left my bike over there. I hopped on my bike and I rode it from my dad's house to my grandmother's. Is a good, I'd say, 17 miles, and I rode it on the back streets. I rode it from about 17 to 25 miles, depending on which street roads you take. I rode that bike all the way back to my grandmother's, and then from the school to my dad's house, it's about another 5 miles. So I walked 5 miles to the house, and then I rode the bike all the way back there. Because I was free. I had freedom. I wasn't locked in a cage, and man, it felt so good just to be able to ride my bike. It really did. So I get back to my grandmother's, and then my phone rings. And guess who it is? I'll give you 3 guesses. You ain't gotta guess because you already know. It's her. And she was like, oh my God. She's like, why didn't you tell me you came back? She's like, what happened? Where were you and everything? And I sit there and I didn't, to this day, she doesn't really know everything that happened. All I said was I was in a mental institution, and she was just crying on the phone and crying on the phone and crying, and she was like, I can't believe that. And I was like, so are you seeing anybody? And she's like, no. And I was like, yeah, you are. And she goes, who? And I was like, me. And she goes, oh yeah? And I was like, yep, because you're my girlfriend. And I'm your boyfriend. And that's just the way it is. And from that point on, it was official. After I got that braveness and all that stuff, and after I went through that chaotic adventure and the craziness, I found a fire inside me that I didn't know I had. I went from being that innocent guy that always did what and believed what his parents told him, to the I want what I want, and I'm not afraid to say it or go after it, and I want you. So yeah. And so from that point on, me and her dated, or that's the moment we've made it official, quote unquote. So the next day at school, we met up, and I wrapped my arms around her, and I kissed her. That was the first time I physically kissed her. And I remember just holding her, and after I kissed her, and I could just look at her, and I could see it in her face and her eyes. I could see the emotion, I could see the love, I could see the passion, I could see it all, and it was there, and it was great. And it was so awesome. So the next months go by, my birthday comes, she comes over. By this point I was living back at my father's. My birthday comes, she comes over. We at this point we're starting to get physical. I won't go into the whole oh yeah, blah blah blah. I won't go into the physical aspect because that's not what this is about. But we came over, we had fun, and then a couple weeks later I got my car. Or got my license, actually. So drove over. I started giving her rides from school. We started hanging out after school a lot more after that. So you can imagine, a teenage boy with a car with a teenage girlfriend that hung out every day. You can just imagine all the things that went on and the places they went on at. But anyways, so that went on for a while, and I remember, and So towards the middle of I'd say the end of the summer, things between me and her start heating up in a bad way. And this is the first time we ever had a real falling out. She was going to the beach for a week and with her family. And for some reason, things between us were great. Like, we would call each other all the time, talk all the time, see each other all the time. And she was like, she said, I want to take a break for the week. I don't want to, I want us to have no communication this entire week. I just want to go out and have fun and enjoy myself. And I was like, what, you don't want to be with, like, are you saying that we're off? Are we broken up? And she's like, no, I want me time for a week, like, and I was like, all right. And then, like, she was like, well, maybe, and she was like, maybe we should break it for like a week, just have a week of broken up. And I was like, I'm not okay with that. Why do you want to break up for a week while you're on vacation? Something about that just smells fishy to me, like, that's just not right in my book. That's something about that's just not right. And this is after months and months and months and months and months and months of a wonderful relationship. Like, straight out, this is out of the blue. And so, after fighting for, I don't even know how long, because it's the first fight we ever really were in. We say, all right, we're going to go on the break. So we go on the break. And then I didn't mention, but after I got back from mental institution and I go to my grandmother's, my dad was like, well, is there anything I can do to, make this easier for you? And I was like, yeah, buy me a carton of cigarettes. Keep in mind, I was 17. I was like, you know what? I've been locked up in jail, or not jail, but it felt like it, in a mental institution for a week, and all I want is to smoke a cigarette. So he went out and bought me a carton of Winston cigarettes. I'm not even joking. My father, who high or hell water has to have it his way, went and bought me a carton of cigarettes. And he said, now don't say I never did anything for you. So I can't say he never did. He didn't do anything, because he bought me a carton of cigarettes at 17. So he did something. So, anyways. So we're on this break for a week, and I start getting mopey and sad and really just like in a really depressed mood. And, I was like, Dad, can you do something for me? He goes, yeah. I was like, can you go and buy me a couple bottles of NyQuil? And he goes, why? And I was like, because, me and Miranda broke up, and I just want to sleep. I just want to sleep this off. And he's like, alright. So he goes and he buys me a couple bottles of NyQuil. And he brings them to me. So I start just sipping the bottle like a bottle of beer. I open one bottle up and I start drinking it like beer, like chugging the bitch. And I remember I chugged the entire bottle of NyQuil. And I got so drunk off of that bottle of NyQuil. I got drunk, like really effed up. And I drunk it, and the next morning came by, and I woke up. I felt better. So a month goes by, and I was like, you know what? I was like, if she's gonna pull stuff like this, I don't need her. Because, it's stupid that she wants to act this way. Whatever reasoning she has behind this is completely stupid. I don't need this, and if she's going to act this way, I don't need her. If she wants to take her break to go to the beach, that's her deal. But she's not going to, I'm not going to be here when she gets back. And I wasn't. She gets back, and what does she do? She calls me. What do I do? Don't answer. She texts me. What do I do? Don't answer. 3 weeks go by like this. And then what happens? She calls my dad's cell phone. leaves him a very disturbing and freaking horrible text message which screwed the rest of my life. But I won't get into that right now. I'll save that for next time. But after that text message is where things take a horrible turn. And this wonderful relationship that we spent building up for months is about to take a drastic change into a direction that I never thought I'd see. Yeah. Till next time.